When were you aware that your son had changed? We're talking there about, you know, he worked very hard at school, you were a very close family, he was a good boy, you say.
He was.
And what changed?
I would say it was probably about a year and a half period just before he went in 2015. It was kind of, there were slight changes, but again, it was over an 18-month period. So it was kind of, you know, they weren't kind of consecutive changes. They were just like sort of a change here slightly, but about his appearance or just slightly more rigid in his kind of character, which was, for him, it was very unusual because he was such a humorous and sort of funny, kind-natured boy.
Did that ring alarm bells for you? I mean, we hear with all the atrocities that have happened in the last just 2 months here in Britain, we have heard a lot of people, there's been criticism, hasn't there, aimed at Muslim communities and saying, you know, they have to do more in the communities, the families have to do more, you have to notice things more. If you believe a young man is, or woman is being radicalised, you know, people must speak out. And so there might be people who listen to this and go, well, when you saw these changes, did you confront it? Did you think, well, something's happening to my son?
At the time, I did confront it, like, but again, radicalisation, especially at that time, was not something that was really kind of in the limelight, really. People were beginning to talk about it more, but it wasn't as much as today. I did confront the changes in him because I was finding it difficult within family life, and that's why I would confront him. But again, I was just being his mother. I wasn't being his therapist. I wasn't being the detective. I was just trying to be his mum at the end of the day and try to guide him.
When you all attend at the same mosque, but he started going to a different mosque, did that not make you think, well, why does he not want to come to our mosque? What's the attraction of a different mosque to his family?
At that time, when he decided to change mosque, he had become more rigid in himself and more kind of sort of, you know, more following the rules, and it was very difficult within family life. And when he changed that to a more kind of stricter mosque, we did have a dialogue about it, and we did talk about that and how I wasn't very keen about it.
When you say stricter, are you saying that you're not strict Muslims, or you don't follow the religion rigidly then?
I think there's very many, this is a difficulty with this, I think there's many levels to it. I mean, just because I'm not as strict as others, it doesn't mean I don't practice, which we do, and that's how we brought our children up.
Because you converted to being Muslim at, what, 19 years old?
At 19.
Yeah. So not for marriage, just for your own beliefs?
Yes, yeah. I've been searching for something, and then Islam came along, and that's kind of, it fitted in place for me.
What is it about this religion, though, that makes terrorism more appealing, and it makes it more appealing to people like your son as well? He wanted to go to a caliphate in Iraq and Syria, and he was excited about this, and he just loved the idea of this Islamic paradise. What is it about this religion?
I don't know if it's about the religion. I can only say from my son's point of view why it kind of would have attracted him, that kind of caliphate or that kind of utopian kind of life, was the fact that as a boy, from sort of age 2 to sort of 6 years old, we lived we lived in Yemen. So he'd had those culture sort of things that he'd kind of grown up with, and I think he also longed for kind of to have that easier life and that way of life when he was an adult.
Go back to you. What is it about this religion? He grew up with religion and a life that he was very at ease with, and yet he stopped being as sociable and became incredibly introverted. He said he no longer wanted to celebrate his birthday, which is normal for a lot of Muslims. What's that about?
Again, you know, with the birthdays, a lot of Muslims don't celebrate it. So it was just for him in our family. We did, and that became, for me, that was a change in him, and became more rigid. And so, like I said, with Islam, there are many levels to it. So
you're saying these changes happened, and you had noticed them, but you didn't believe it was leading to
Nicola, let me tell you
serious.
something. I grew up in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, and let me tell you, if somebody was involved, people mostly knew about their associations with paramilitaries. Some people will find it very hard to believe that you didn't know, your family didn't know, or your local mosque didn't know what he was up to.
I don't think they do. You have to understand this ideology, and the recruiters nowadays with particularly ISIS, they're very skilled and at directing the young person to not bring attention to themselves. So in actual fact, when a lot of the blame goes on to parents saying you must have seen something, we are the last people to know anything.
Well, look,
do you understand that
in fairness to you,
accusation?
you are determined that this will not happen to another family, and you've been through your pain and your heartache with all of this, and we probably haven't got time to talk about you know, how he was taken away, how he was with ISIS, how you couldn't communicate with them, and how you feared for all of that. Are you angry? Are you sad? Are you determined that the message will get out there to watch how these boys are becoming radicalised?
A lot of people do ask me, am I angry? And I don't know if I don't really recognise that I am angry. I think what happens is with myself, that anger I do have, I just have put it in such an energy to make sure this does not happen to any family again, and because I know exactly how isolating and lonely and how difficult it is. You know, nothing compares to it throughout my life, and that's where I put my energy and why I'm determined to talk about this. So because I think it's not just Muslims that we need to do something, but everybody. I find it in schools, institutions, that people are just not talking about it. They're just ticking boxes and saying, yes, we've done this initiative.